Okay, we should be live. We should be live. Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Movie Buffs. Um, Hopefully I'm a little bit louder this week because I've noticed in previous episodes I've been pretty quiet. So I turned myself up on OBS. So if I'm blasting all of your eardrums out right now, then I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry whatsoever. How you doing, man?
Not too bad now yourself.
Ah.
I just kind of a lot to talk about after yesterday, but
Hey, well, I mean, hot off the press right now, literally tweeted about 5-10 minutes ago, Zack Snyder announced that he will be attending the virtual premiere of Wonder Woman 1984 that will be live on DCFandom.com. That is literally just tweeted that out like five
well,
minutes ago.
I didn't see it because I was trying to eat some food and then I was trying to get everything sorted for my notes for the stream and I missed everything. So
No, well, I mean, I see if I
great,
can.
great.
I know it's a pretty damn nice thing to start off, and they're using the fandom site again, so that's always promising to see. Yeah,
Yeah,
just said so proud to be a part of this. December 15th at 12 I think that's Pacific time. Um
yeah.
DCFandom.com. So in
Oh,
4 days, be sure to check that out, everybody.
this for everything, everything that they do. So
Yeah.
like people are going to show up now just to see Zack Snyder, even if they weren't that interested in Patty Jenkins's movie. They want to see Zack Snyder. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a day before I get to see it. So yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's timed pretty well for us. Just got to keep an eye on the stream. We had a bit of a pause. I'm not too sure how it's doing. Let's see. I think it keeps just jumping in and out. Hopefully it stabilizes. It's saying excellent connection now on YouTube, so we'll hope. We get 1 week where we fix a load of technical problems, like I fixed my audio so I'm louder, and we don't have a problem where only one person can be heard over the other. Now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm gonna just drop the connection.
Yeah, it's your internet was going in and out for a second, but I could still hear you. But look, I think technical problem. It's back now, so it's working now.
It's kind
From
of
what I can see
jumping
on
in
my
and
end.
out. I don't think I've got anything going on any other. Um, Let me just. I apologize if the stream has frozen visually on our end, but I'm just checking to just closing down anything that I don't need open. Yeah, I really don't have a lot open. Okay, let's just close that.
Seems to be fine here now for me, and I'm not.
All right. Well, we'll keep rolling. I apologize if it does dip in and out. On the Zoom call for me, Sean's face is completely frozen. Oh no, he's back. He's back. Oh, thank God. My God, my heart
It's,
cannot take
it's
very much of this.
it says your internet's all red at the bottom, the three bars. Now it's yellow.
Oh no.
Your connection.
Well, I'll stop the stream preview entirely. And then we will. I'll just leave the technical feedback to you, and you can tell me if the stream just completely fucking dies. uh,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll try and persevere anyway, regardless of what happens. We've got a lot to talk about, so if the stream is a bit choppy, then I apologize. Hopefully, it will stabilize as we go forward. But yeah, I'm looking on the studio, and we're going good, so we'll just persevere. So topic number 1, something we
Yeah.
didn't get to talk about last time, because of our amazing guest, Hilton Ariel Ruiz. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. The director, creator, writer, producer of every single form of zombie with a shotgun. Go check that out. So the one topic
Yeah.
we didn't get to talk about was Warner Bros. Big play. They announced that they'll be dropping like 17 movies that were going to go to the cinemas exclusively, and now going to be dropping on both HBO Max and in the cinemas for a month. Obviously, this is them kind of saying, I mean, me personally, I'm behind the decision. I think it just works. It's sensible. If you still want to go to the theaters, if it's safe where you are, then do it. You can. But if not,
Yeah.
then you can always enjoy it from the comfort of your own home, unless you're outside of the US, in which case, fuck you.
Yeah. But I don't because like our theater's going to be able to stay open internationally with just like one movie coming out every few weeks. Like when Wonder Woman comes out here and in the UK, what's the next movie that's going to come out?
Yeah.
I can't think off the top of my head. I think that's going to attract people to the cinemas. So like, is the theater's going to be able to stay open for a number of weeks? So I don't know if it's going to last the entire of 2021. I think in an international basis, people will end up probably watching those movies at home as well, where we are. But it's yeah, the 17 movies. It's pretty cool, but like it's they had to do something. I agree with what Warner Brothers did. I don't agree with what they did in terms of not telling everybody and maybe not consulting everybody, but it was a decision that had to be done. Like, what other way were they supposed to survive money wise, and then like be around for 2 3 years from now, and then also have like people wanting to watch their stuff. So they had to do something, or they would have went out of business. So I think they made the right decision.
Yeah, there was a lot of, and there's a lot of argument that's come out of that as the fact that the communication was pretty bad. I think, I want to say Legendary, the studio, I believe they said that they were told like half an hour before they announced it what was going to happen. So, I mean, that was a
Yeah,
bit, shitty, I'll admit. So yeah, I'm not going to totally justify it, but at the end of the day, I think it is the right play. And surprisingly enough,
yeah,
just to offer up as an interesting thing to consider is I'm yet to, and I'm happily be proved wrong if this is the wrong stance to take, but I haven't heard any backlash against Disney for a lot of um, the stuff that they're doing. Dropping millions of things on Disney Plus um, exclusively. I don't think I saw a single mention of cinemas on the Investor Day yesterday. Um, Obviously, a lot of it's TV shows that wouldn't go out to the cinemas anyway. But the fact that
yeah,
there wasn't any kind of explicit discussion about what they're doing about cinemas, whereas Warner Bros. Was saying, hey, we're still going to drop our stuff in the cinemas. It's still going to go there. It's just you can watch it on HBO Max as well. We'd rather our customers actually be alive to watch our films than, putting their health at risk, which is, I mean, personally, I think it's a fair stance to take. So if I'm wrong about the Investor Day and they did mention stuff about the cinemas, then I'll say I'm wrong. But it's just something that I just kind of picked up on when I was watching it. It just kind of seems to be all about the streaming service. Yeah, when Warner Bros. Say we're doing both, they get a hell of a lot more flack. But again, I'm not a studio. I'm not going to pretend to. I know the internal workings. I'm not going to justify one studio over the other. But I will say I think the split play is probably the right one.
yeah. And like yesterday, they just referenced the theaters in a small bit by saying that Black Widow was still set to come out in theaters,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't say like these are all our theatrical stuff. Get excited for them. They were more highlighting the Disney Plus stuff, as you said. And look, I think Disney will probably end up doing the same thing as Warner Brothers are doing right now, but they'll probably handle it in a lot of a better way. They
Mm-hmm.
won't piss off other directors and stuff. They'll talk about it and make sure everything's right because they won't want a PR disaster on their hands. Like Warner Brothers is going through something now. Like Christopher Nolan's coming out.
Yeah.
The new Villeneuve. I think Jason Momoa had a huge post about it. Like these are their biggest directors and their biggest stars coming out and criticizing it. So I think Disney will end up doing it. I think they will handle it in a much better way than they did. And yeah, but I agree what Warner Bros. Had to do. They had to do it in my eyes because you either adapt to what's going on in the world right now or you're going to fail and lose money big time.
Mm-hmm.
Disney is going to do the exact same thing as Warner Brothers. They're doing it right now with the amount of shows that they've greenlit. But yeah, I think it's the right decision, but probably not the best way they handle it.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I'll give my answer for a bit while I'm doing it. Do you mind just doing another quick check at the stream? I think we're all good. OBS is
Yeah.
saying we're in the green, but just check like audio that we can both be heard. Yeah. Our usual technical crew from behind the scenes is having the day off today because we wanted to give them a nice holiday. Um, so yeah, I mean, well, personally, I think it's definitely the right play. I think the outrage. I mean, personally, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd hear Christopher Nolan come out with a take about Hollywood, and I'd say I personally believe you're entirely wrong. I really don't think that Nolan's position was the right way to go. I think he was the one director out of all of Hollywood who essentially got his way with COVID. Having Tenet release in the cinema. And yet he comes out and is essentially saying like, hey guys, I want you to be seeing my film in the cinema. And it's like, well, there is kind of a global pandemic going on. And I know that's kind of like a very reductive argument about, a reductionist argument as to what he was trying to say. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, Tenet was literally, and they came, the execs of Warner Bros. Came out and said, hey, we saw from Tenet that people aren't comfortable going to the movies, especially in the US where COVID is essentially at its worst. Like, people don't want to go to a fucking movie, You go to the cinemas. You can't blame them for that. So to then say, hey, no, screw you, HBO Max and whatnot, How dare you give people a choice? How dare you let more people see my movie in a more safer way? Yeah, I know it's pretty shitty to be watching fucking Tenet on your fucking iPhone or whatever, but people, when they want to watch a film, they will take it seriously. They will have it on the biggest screen in their house, or they will be watching it, in the comfort of their living room or their bed or whatever. Let people have the choice themselves.
Yeah, like Warner Brothers, not like Warner Brothers have been sitting around doing nothing. Like they put out Tenant, they tried that theatrical experience during the pandemic, and look, it made actually a good chunk of money, even though it was in a pandemic and people are saying Tenant's a failure. Like I think it's amazing that Tenant made 350 million worldwide in a
Mm.
pandemic where everyone was locked away at home. So I think that was pretty well. Like Warner Brothers tried that, it didn't work the way that they wanted it to work. So fine, they didn't just sit around and wait for the pandemic to go away. They adapted and now they're trying something new. They're trying theaters and a streaming service at the same time. So for me, when all the other studios were sitting back and not doing anything, Warner Brothers were the one who were trying to do stuff while Disney wouldn't release their stuff, while Lionsgate or any of these other companies will not release stuff because they didn't want to lose money and didn't want to miss out on the box office change. So for me, Warner Brothers have been the only one trying to give us entertainment while trying to survive.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, hey, it definitely puts the onus now on making. I was going to say it puts the onus on making HBO Max as good as it can be. My only concern with this big cinema plan, and this is going to sound very greedy and consumerist, but I kind of hope that releasing all these movies doesn't mean that Warner Bros. Is going to kind of take their foot off the pedal with HBO Max and go, oh, we're giving you guys all these films. You don't need anything else. Disney showed yesterday that they know what the fans want, and they are definitely going to give it to them because they want to be that leading streaming service, and they're going all out. Now, I know it sounds very greedy to say, oh, we've got like 17 blockbusters all coming to HBO Max and the cinemas next year, but it's like people need something else other than movies. You want to maybe bring us a couple of TV shows, and I definitely think after the Investor Day yesterday, this is something I've seen on Twitter quite a lot, and I fully agree with, is aside from Ben Affleck not wanting to do it, I really don't see any reason why they can't do a Ben Affleck Batman series. I think that would be the only obstacle, would be whether Ben is wanting to actually commit back to the role again. But given that he would no doubt get a hell of a lot of creative control over the whole thing, and it would be the story that he wants to do, that could be quite enticing. But I just really don't see any reason, as I said, aside from Ben not wanting to do it, for them not funding it. Like Disney said, yo, hey, you got let's look at Mandalorian, for example, right? We'll get into Star Wars in a second, but just say, oh, you love Mandalorian. All right, we're going to give you 2 spin-offs of that because, you fucking love that show and it's driving the viewers. DC comes along and then Ben Affleck, there's a lot of support, big community surrounding it. Lots of people really want this TV series. Nah, They don't need that. We don't need that at all. After yesterday, they have to be knocking on his door and saying, hey, we'll put another 0 or another 2 zeros on your paycheck. Please fucking do this.
Yeah, like the demand is definitely there. I just think Disney are a little bit ahead at the moment because they had Disney Plus out a year ago. They've had time to plan all their shows. The pandemic has probably speeded up their process of planning. So yeah, they are a little bit ahead. And HBO Max has some great shows, some unbelievable shows on it, and some great movies. And they've got huge IPs. But for me, they haven't been marketing it that well. Like Disney Plus, everyone knows what Disney is. They know
Yeah.
if you say it to your friends or your parents or whatever, if I was to do the same, everyone knows what Disney is. If I said HBO Max, people wouldn't know. So I think they've got some creative choices wrong in the last year or so. It probably should be called Warner Brothers or something, so
I was
people
going
would
to say,
know.
do you think they should rebrand?
Yeah, I think they should because look, the Harry Potter stuff is there, all these kind of movies, and it's ridiculous that they can't promote themselves in a good way. They're talking about changing the name again. Like even when they first launched, they had HBO Go, they had HBO, they had HBO Max. It was just kind of messy, and I think the subscribers will go up now since they made this big announcement about all the movies going there. But I think they have to change the name and just get people interested because everyone was talking about Disney Plus yesterday and HBO Max, people don't know what it is. So how can they be expected to fork out money for something that they don't know exactly what it is? I think you can watch certain shows on HBO that are on HBO Max if you have that app as well. So I don't know, but I think Disney are in a very strong position right now. And I think yesterday probably opened, like, we don't want Warner Brothers to be too reactionary because that's what happened in
Mm-hmm.
2016. But this is kind of a good way to react. Like 2016 was listening to critics and just listening to trolls and stuff like
Yeah.
that. This way, this is more of a business reaction. You know,
Mm.
they have these huge IPs. Like I think Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out in March or April next year. That's a huge IP to have. They're the biggest characters in the world. So when they do start the marketing campaign for that, whether it be after Wonder Woman 84, it needs to do it right. It needs to be on an international basis and show people, look what we have on our streaming service. We've got Batman, we've got Wonder Woman, we've got Superman, the biggest characters in history. So they need to market that pretty well. And then after that comes out, and hopefully it is a success, they listen to the fans, they listen to the buzz online, much like Disney have. They've listened to fan casts of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and
Mm-hmm.
she ended up being the role. They want Sebastian Stan now; he might be Luke Skywalker at some
Yeah.
point as well. But they listen to the fan base. So when Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out, they should listen to the fan base and give us a Batfleck show or movie and give us whatever else, you know. So that start listening to the fan base big time.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, hey, as the old adage goes, when there's competition like this, the consumer always wins. Um,
Yeah,
they need to be focusing on just making these, well, everything as good a value for money as possible. And I think one of the biggest obstacles in that way, sorry, is this obviously this America versus international perspective. The fact that
yeah,
I mean, you can just easily conceive like a normal conversation about people going like, "Oh, did you hear that? Like Warner Bros or whatever, they're putting like all of their big tentpole films are coming to HBO Max next year." And you're like, "Oh shit, that's pretty cool. You know, if COVID hasn't died down, whatever, we could watch them from there. We should maybe get that as a streaming service."
yeah.
And then you're like, "Oh, we can't get it yet because it's only in America." I'm like, what the fuck? Well, I'm not gonna go and watch this in the cinemas because I don't want to risk it, and I can't watch it at home. So my enthusiasm for film A, B, C, D, whatever has just died. Like the emphasis on getting HBO Max International just has to be the number one thing at the moment, and obviously it probably is. But I don't know. It's like guys, come on. I mean, yeah, Wonder Woman could probably survive it, but you are not going to survive the next year without HBO Max going international. And we've already seen that since, and I know it's since HBO Max started, but HBO Max is the fastest growing streaming service since it was created, which is
Yeah.
very impressive. But it's like you've got to capitalize on that a hell of a lot quicker, you know. Um, it's just one of those things. Just
But
get it international. Come on, guys.
yeah, like I think there's a way of getting it international without actually having a platform where we all go to HBO Max or Warner Brothers, whatever it's going to be called. Like if they told us in Ireland or in the UK or in France or in Germany and they said, okay, Zack Snyder's Justice League is coming and this is where you can get it, and then they market it in each country exactly where you can watch it, then that could work also. But when the marketing campaign starts, it just has to be really, really, really big.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. I will throw out an apology. It looks like the Wi-Fi is kind of dipping and coming back up. It went all the way down to 0, then came up to 5,000 kilobytes a second. Anyway, we will try and persevere. I'm just like, my heart rate goes up and down with the numbers that OBS is presenting me with, and I'm just like, oh, fuck's sake, whatever. One of these days we'll have like a perfectly clean stream, nothing going wrong. I think the first one we did have, like the first 2 episodes or whatever, were just like perfect. But whatever, we'll persevere. So I'll throw out
Yeah.
another apology, just to say, guys, if connection's dipping at any point, I apologize. It will stabilize. It's only a spike. It will soon stabilize. Shut it off, Otto. So yeah, I mean, I think that's basically all there really is to say about HBO Max. Without, like every time I've tried to raise a point, I've always found myself just going, "Oh, but what about Disney doing this? Disney doing this?" So I think it's probably a good idea to turn our attention to what went on yesterday. So for those of you who were living under a bit of a rock, yesterday was Disney Investor Day, which was where they just told all the people they showed to the people with all the money all of the great shit that's going to Disney and Disney Plus over the next couple of years. And I'll be damned, they went all fucking out. I mean, that was insane. I was just watching every like reveal. Was just, oh shit, oh damn, oh whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, and it was like every 2 or 3 minutes. I was like, whoa, this is really fucking cool. A couple of things that really stood out to me. We'll keep it within Star Wars to start with, and then we'll go to Marvel.
Yeah.
So Mando spin-offs, I think, is a really good thing, simply because of the fact that it's common sense. Mandalorian's arguably one of their biggest IPs. Well, no, it definitely is one of their biggest IPs. So for them to then go, yeah, let's get some spin-offs of this. It's just them listening to the fans, which is always a win. I think in terms of what else I'm most interested in, it would have to be between Kenobi, obviously, and the like mystery one called The Acolyte, which I believe is like some mystery thriller about the dark side. Which is like, okay, I can dig that. That sounds pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, looks like the two spin-offs of the Mandalorian, the Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka, which are going to link together. Those three shows will be like a crossover, so they're going to have different characters dip in and out, which is pretty cool. I don't know much about the Rangers of the New Republic, but I'm excited to see Rosario Dawson come back as Ahsoka. Now, even though I haven't been watching the animated features of the Star Wars shows, like the Clone Wars or Rebels, they had a pretty good trailer for Star Wars: The Bad Batch, which is kind of all the
Mm-hmm.
clones together and like the misfits, and they're on a journey together. And then of course, like I'm like so excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I've been looking for that, looking forward to that for years. I wanted them to announce that, and now with Hayden Christensen coming back, and they didn't say it as Anakin Skywalker, they said it as Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Got me so pumped, and I'm looking forward to that big time. And then of course there's a Lando series coming, and that's pretty cool in its own right. I presume Donald Glover will come back for that. And then on top of that, we have a Rogue One spin-off of Diego Luna's character, like what I call Andor. Like this is ridiculous the amount of stuff they showed us yesterday.
Yeah, and it's interesting because of the fact that we're kind of getting some. Diversity is the wrong word, but it seems to be that they're kind of trying to take Star Wars in a completely new direction. I think the new trilogy kind of showed that Star Wars fatigue is a very real thing, and they need to kind of really mix it up and go crazy with it, which I'm perfectly happy with. You know, I think Mando is showing that you can kind of make Star Wars really good without having to kind of religiously adhere to. We need lightsabers all the time. We need this all the time. We need stormtroopers all the time. You know, it has those elements a lot, but not as kind of as evident as they would be in the big theatrical films. And that kind of continued progression is shown in the decisions for things like Patty Jenkins' new Rogue Squadron film. You know, kind of like, okay, let's take a particular sect of Star Wars, like, you know, fucking space combat or whatever, and let's just dedicate a whole film to that. It's like, okay, you know, that's good. Explore these more unique elements within the Star Wars universe. Like, that's really fucking cool. And obviously, I'm not going to complain about Patty Jenkins getting a new film. Like, I mean, come on. And a side note, she will be a nice little accolade that she has as being the first woman to ever direct a Star Wars film. We've already seen I mean, obviously, we are here to judge them on the basis of their work. We just want to see a good fucking film at the end of the day. That's really it. But I think it's a recipe for success. Patty Jenkins has proved to be a little bit more than adequate when it comes to making films, in that she's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it's great that a DC director going over to Star Wars, like that's massive for her career, doing Wonder Woman and now doing a Star Wars movie. And like of all the shows that we've talked about, it's amazing that they've actually greenlit so many. But it also shows that they only told us about 2 movies that's coming out in theaters in the next few years. Well, they told us there's about 1 million shows coming on Disney Plus. So they're looking at the theatrical experience in the long run. They're not looking at it in the next year or two. They're looking down the line.
Yeah.
And without saying it to us in our faces that we're concentrating on Disney Plus from now on, they just kind of told us in a slight way, like, look, these are all the shows we have coming up, and the movies are just down that far, you know. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to that movie. Like, it's about the fighter pilots, and she said it's very close to home for her. Her father was a pilot, of course, and so that's pretty cool. She'll definitely put a lot of passion into that project. And then the Taika Waititi, director of the Oscar winner for his screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, will be doing a Star Wars untitled movie as well. We don't know what it's going to be about, but yeah, like I'm looking forward to this new start for Star Wars content with Disney. Probably more of the Disney Plus shows, the Andor and the Anakin coming back, and the spin-offs, Ahsoka, and then of course Mandalorian on top of that. So yeah, like for someone who's not a diehard Disney Star Wars fan, I'm really looking forward to what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how they portray the how Hayden Christensen fits into the Obi-Wan series. Whether I mean, as you did point out earlier, he's returning as Darth Vader, not Anakin Skywalker. But you know for sure there will be a lot of flashback scenes kind of helping to build the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan even more.
Yeah,
But you've already got some really good signs going into that, like Ewan McGregor saying that his favorite thing about this series is that it's reuniting him with Hayden Christensen, which is awesome. And that
yeah,
Hayden's obviously not had the best of times with the Star Wars franchise and people just being toxic as hell towards him. But hopefully this can be a new leaf. And they can turn a new page in that book. And I'm fucking excited. It's Obi-Wan. It's Ewan McGregor at long last coming back. And if that means they can bring in Hayden Christensen to the role, then 100% I'm all for it. And it's getting me excited. I mean, prior to the Investor Day, honestly, I was like, okay, Mando is definitely something I want to watch. And then in terms of the new shows, I was like, WandaVision looks pretty interesting.
yeah.
And we'll get into Marvel in a bit. But it's just like, after yesterday, I'm like, okay, I'm like really fucking sold on a lot of shit that I didn't think would be coming. Or, I didn't think my enthusiasm for the stuff that Disney Plus is bringing would be as high as it is. And obviously that's a good thing.
Yeah, and like the prequels get a lot of hate, but a lot of people have always wanted Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor to come back, or Hayden Christensen to come back in some capacity. Even though there is toxic people out there and people hate the prequels in some way, I see a lot of praise for those two characters. They like them. They like the interaction the two of them had, and I actually like the prequels. I'm not like a Scrooge when it comes to movies. I try and find some enjoyment out of them. And with the prequels, I think look, some of the characters are interesting. Some of the action scenes are amazing.
Yeah.
And for me, they're good watches. And I do like Hayden Christensen. Like he's Darth Vader. He is Darth Vader. It doesn't matter how bad he was in the role or how bad you think he was. He was the character for two movies, and he eventually became Darth Vader. But I want to see Darth Vader hunt down Obi-Wan Kenobi. I want to see them two cross paths. And I know you'd probably have to go against canon a little bit because of some of the dialogue we heard in the old movies, but like it's going to be cool just to see whatever capacity, just to see Darth Vader again. Like maybe as cool as Rogue One, because Rogue One was badass. That slicing and dicing scene, and I think there's a good potential to tell. Like it doesn't have to be full of action, but it has the potential of being a really good story about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, and obviously it may clash with a lot of people's headcanon about what he was doing after episode 3 and episode 4, but it is set a good 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Now, I didn't think they were going to go that far. I thought maybe just kind of picking up exactly where episode 3 left off would be pretty cool, or maybe just like a couple of years afterwards. Especially if they're going to bring in Hayden Christensen, like seeing his adjustment to becoming Darth Vader and, life in the suit and just his full descent into just being an evil bastard. I thought it was a pretty cool thing to explore. Starting 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, I don't know what avenues exactly that leaves, but I mean, they know what they're doing. I'm fucking excited. I didn't think they were going to pull it off, but it was definitely one of those things that you see around social media just saying, wouldn't it be great if Hayden came back? Wouldn't it be absolutely great? I'm like, hey, you know what? It really fucking would. So when I see that announcement, I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's really fucking cool.
Like Hayden Christensen, he's grown up a lot since those movies, so like he probably hasn't got as good as material to work with because of what happened with the prequels and stuff. But he's probably crafted himself as an actor, and he probably thinks to himself, well, if I was to do it again, I probably would just do this a little bit differently or things like this. So I think it's going to be cool to see him come back to the role, and I'm rooting for him to give a really good performance. And with like Ewan McGregor for me needs a big hit. He's a great actor. Like he was in Birds of Prey, didn't do as well financially to be put as a big star. Like Doctor Sleep as well, a great movie, but it didn't make that much. And so I really hope this brings back a new it's not like he's been in terrible movies or anything, but I just think he deserves more credit as an actor. So to have him back as Obi-Wan Kenobi will bring a lot of eyes to him again. And like 10 years after Revenge of the Sith is interesting. Like what happened in those 10 years? Did Darth Vader just couldn't find him and now he has found him? Or is Darth Vader is Darth Vader just kind of like something that haunts him? He kind of sees it. I'm interested to see his internal dilemma, how he struggles with, like he feels he probably created Darth Vader. He didn't see the signs he was turning evil, or he could have stopped it. So he'll probably blame himself a lot. But yeah, that's the number one thing I'm excited for Star Wars going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is the thing when I think the actors, I think Hayden would probably have realized if he's been keeping tabs on how Star Wars was doing, is that it is a very hard fandom to please. Very,
Yeah.
very hard fandom to please. Um, so and I mean the prequels, I think they've been getting more love as time has gone on. I think
Mm,
history's been kind to them, not in the
yeah.
sense that they are being seen as maybe better and better films, but maybe that people are just finding better and better enjoyment out of them. They're more likely to see, oh, I'm just like flicking through the channels and oh, like Revenge of the Sith is on. Fuck yeah, I'll just watch it. Um,
Yeah.
Again, that's not exactly the best metric for success of a film, but I do think that that history has definitely been kind to them. So hopefully, it not being a film means that the kind of angry um, fan base elements of the fan base. Obviously, every fan base has toxic elements, but hopefully there
Yeah.
will be a smaller population of that who feel like they're indebted to watch it because it's on a streaming service rather than in the cinema. But who
Yeah.
knows? I mean, we are. This is something that I think we've talked about extensively before. We are moving away from. I think we're moving away from the voice of the majority and the voice of the critic when it comes to films and TV shows, and much more towards just people taking it upon themselves to decide whether they want to watch something or not, rather than going, oh, what's Rotten Tomatoes saying, what's IMDb saying. It's, oh, I'm just flicking through these streaming
Yeah.
services and I'm like, oh shit, there's a show about Kenobi. Like, hell yeah, I'll give that a watch. You'll see, like, I think Netflix usually has like a metric that says like how much of a match it is for you based on the things that you've watched on your profile. And that's really it. They don't go like, oh, here's the link to IMDb so you can see all the reviews. It's just a case of if you want to
Yeah.
watch it, you watch it, So
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely think that is, if we can keep that up and, just put a lot more emphasis on people just watching something because they just genuinely want to fucking watch it rather than because it's something that everyone's like, no, that's shit, don't watch it, it's a load of trash,
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like the prequels were hated back then, but now people are coming around to them because they hate the sequel trilogy so much. So now they
Hatred
want.
turned hatred into love.
So now they want Hayden Christensen back and Obi-Wan Kenobi and maybe even Samuel L. Jackson because it wasn't as bad as they thought it was, or stuff like that. But it's interesting how the Star Wars world has evolved. But I think that it's exciting if you're a Star Wars fan, even for someone who's not even a Star Wars diehard fan. I'm excited. I can't wait to see these characters come back. I can't wait to see what happens on the screen because if it's as good as Mandalorian, we're in for a crazy treat. So hopefully it all leads good. Like, what is there any other show or movie that you're really looking forward to besides the Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan Kenobi and McGregor?
Oh goodness, I'm trying to think now. Well, I mean, I think obviously Ahsoka is a big one. The Mandalorian, as you said, it's kind of set the bar for Star Wars at the moment.
Yeah,
And I think if that success and that kind of treatment bleeds into other properties, then it's a surefire success. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think of what else they announced. There was the Acolyte. Just as I mentioned right at the start, I think just from what I've heard, does sound the most interesting. I'm all for them kind of having a much greater emphasis on a dark side story. Like an anti-hero kind of story. I think that would be really fucking cool. Just some kind of like,
going on from their perspective, like
yeah, exactly. It's usually
cool,
always like Star Wars is good versus bad. You have to have Jedi, you have to have Sith, and that was one of the things that I thought was commendable about The Last Jedi was it was kind of like, oh, here's this really interesting idea of let's abandon that duology and let's forge a new path, and then just went right out the fucking window. But that was one of the things that most excited me about The Last Jedi. So at least just kind of coming to a different perspective other than we have to just sit with the good guys the entire time, and it's just a bit of fresh air in Star Wars. So I'd say Ahsoka, Acolyte, and Rogue Squadron for sure. And because I have full faith that Patty Jenkins is going to make a fantastic film. If anyone can do a Star Wars film right, it's her. But yeah, that obviously represents an interesting implication for Wonder Woman 3, doesn't it? If she's gone to Disney, you've got the problem of, is she staying there? I mean, obviously we don't know what contracts are like or anything like that, but is she going to stay with Disney? Is she really pissed with the decision to not have like Wonder Woman be exclusively in cinemas? I don't know. Is there any
Yeah,
animosity between her and the brass at Warner Bros? Again, it's just pure guessing at this point. But I mean, Rogue Squadron isn't planned to come out till 2023. So it's a case of saying, right, that's probably 2024, 2025 at the latest, at the earliest, sorry, for Wonder Woman 3. So it's like, can you really put 5 years between them? Or do you think that they're going to maybe switch it over to a new director? Is that even a good idea
yeah,
given Patty's performances?
yeah. Like last night when the news came out, I thought maybe she wouldn't be doing Wonder Woman 3 because are Warner Brothers willing to wait 5 years to make a Wonder Woman sequel for a highly successful franchise? Then I thought maybe, or someone pointed out to me actually, that it might be a good idea for Zack Snyder's Justice League if Patty Jenkins is busy, because if they're going to wait for Patty Jenkins to come back and do Wonder Woman 3, then maybe Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 could happen while they're waiting for Patty Jenkins, and maybe it lines up with the story because we know that the Wonder Woman 3 will take place in modern day, so you had Wonder Woman 1 in the World War times, and then this one's in 1984. Her next appearance is in Batman v Superman. Her next appearance is in Justice League 2, Justice League 3. Then you could have your Wonder Woman 3. So I think it lines up pretty well, and it's actually good for Zack Snyder's Justice League that she's gone to Disney now. And I didn't think that initially last night because someone pointed out to me then after, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But I hope I wish her all the best. I hope she does a great job. But like that's the thing, if that movie is a success, the movie she's doing, like if it is a big success, Disney are going to greenlight a number 2 straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends how successful that movie is and if she wants to come back and do a Wonder Woman 3. But if Warner Brothers are going to wait for her till she's finished, then it's good for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as I said before, it's pure conjecture, but I would have to guess that any hesitancy behind doing Wonder Woman 3 has to be down to just some internal quarrels at Warner Bros. I don't know, the whole situation kind of lends itself to being like, oh, I could easily see why she'd be pissed about, the HBO Max and stuff like that, but she seems like a very reasonable person, and it's very hard to negotiate and say, no, I only want my film to be released in the cinemas. It's like, okay, well, hardly anybody's going to see it then. And I think Wonder Woman 84 kind of represents like a big deal for HBO Max in the sense that they're saying, hey, to those guys who already got HBO Max, you don't have to pay anything for this. So if that's not, a big enough incentive to see a blockbuster, I could be the biggest film of the year for free, and that would be the trend going forward, who knows? I hope it has a bit more of a better success than Tenet does, and I think it will, just simply because of the fact that it's available to stream. But yeah, I think she very clearly loves the character of Wonder Woman. She loves working with Gal. She likes, she obviously loves working with Zack.
Yeah.
They've got, positive relationships all around. So, I don't know. To be a director in this time with a big project out that's kind of being thrown all over the place by COVID, I, extend my sympathies. But it's just, yeah, I mean, I'd be really sad if she doesn't come back for Wonder Woman 3 because tonally she nails it.
I like to segue away a bit from Star Wars and Patty Jenkins. Like Zack Snyder is going to be at the virtual premiere, whatever it is, for Wonder Woman 2. That's strange because like that must be a reason. There must be a reason behind that. Not only for the fan base, but like they must be thinking of expanding this world and going back to Snyder's verse. Like it must be a possible idea because why else would you have him there? Because it looked like even a year ago or 2 years ago when Wonder Woman 2 was getting made. Oh, it looks a little bit brighter. It looks different than Wonder Woman 1. It's getting away from the Zack Snyder aesthetic. Maybe it has more Jeff Johns say in it. But but now he's back. It's cool. So yeah, like even if Patty didn't want to do Wonder Woman 3, Zack Snyder would be a great choice for that as well.
Yeah.
Like he knows Gal, so like, but I would love to see her come back and do her trilogy. I don't really like when a director leaves from a party. Like look at the Star Wars. We're talking about Star Wars now. Look at Star Wars, like Force Awakens. Like J.J. Abrams should have been directing all 3 movies if that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or Rian Johnson should have directed all 3 movies. They shouldn't have been a different director for each movie. That was what the plan was. Then there was so much hate for Rian Johnson's Last Jedi. They got rid of him. I think there was supposed to be another director as well for the third one. He left. Then J.J. Abrams had to come back in, and he was under pressure. So then he just gave fan service to hopefully make sure everyone was okay. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to her movie. She seems to be really passionate about it because it's got to do with her father. Her father was
Mhm.
a pilot. So yeah, like I can't wait to see her movie, and she's a great director.
And yeah, I guess this is kind of a really a good reception for Disney to be able to say that they've kind of got people excited about Star Wars again. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like the sequels killed Star Wars or whatever, but I think, as I mentioned at the start, the fatigue of kind of seeing the same shit in every film um, was kind of getting to people. And then we kind of said, okay, well, Mando is like, it has a lot of the typical Star Wars elements, but it's a bit more properly focused on a well-developed character and and an interesting story. It's like, oh, who knew
Yeah.
that these things are things that people like in Star Wars? It's crazy, but hopefully they keep up this trend. And yeah, I think I can't think of a director kind of more deserving to land a big thing like Star Wars. I mean, arguably, I'd say she's going from Wonder Woman to a smaller property in Star Wars, but globally recognized, I guess. No, Star Wars is obviously still the bigger thing, and it's a very big deal. And I'm
Yeah.
happy to see them kind of stepping into a different aspect of the universe. Let's have a fighter pilot thing, like just a whole film based around like space combat and shit. Like, hell yeah, I'm happy to see
Mm.
that.
Yeah, and like this has all come out of the Mandalorian. Like, good job Disney Plus came around and the Mandalorian came around, because we'd still be like annoyed over the Rise of Skywalker or annoyed over the Last Jedi. Like, I like those movies, and I know some people don't, but like, good job the Mandalorian came around to make the mood better again.
Mm,
Because it's like there's even a droid story coming as well with
yeah,
C-3PO and R2D2. I think it's going to be animated, but that should be a good watch as well. It should be funny. Those characters are good interaction with each other. So yeah, they're expanding this world. And an interesting point to come out of that as well. So these big sets that they have for the Mandalorian, the way they shoot it's indoors, it's on like a
yeah,
soundstage, and they're able to create the effects around the room, which is fascinating. They're building another one in London. They're building one in Australia. So they will be able to shoot all these shows at the one time
mm,
in different locations and have the same quality, which is amazing. Because like if you wanted to use like Chicago to shoot an action sequence, like if the Batman is there, and then you have to wait till the Batman's finished. But now with these inside places that they have, which is it's really cool just to see. We got to see a little bit of it yesterday as well. So they can shoot the Mandalorian in the US if they wanted. They could shoot Andor in London. They could shoot Ahsoka in Australia, and then when they're finished, you could have one division shooting in London. Like it's pretty cool the way they've done things. They really have changed the game big time, not just on a streaming service, but in terms of how they shoot movies and shows.
yeah, definitely. And it's all part of that, just kind of that melting pot of just trying to make Star Wars fresh and exciting again, and being able to kind of push for new kind of technological innovation in the process. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty damn cool as well. And I think one of the other things to remember is that I think I'm kind of grateful that the last season of Game of Thrones was bad, because if it wasn't, then we'd be looking at another trilogy of Star Wars films. And it's like, and not that I think the writers of Game of Thrones are particularly bad or anything like that, but I think the Mandalorians kind of surged into the mainstream alongside Game of Thrones fading out.
yeah,
Are kind of two like perfect things to align. Because it means that, like, oh well, Mandalorian's great. Let's keep doing that. People seem to like that. Oh, people are kind of getting us a bit sick of the same old Star Wars movies, so let's not do that anymore. It's kind of like,
yeah.
innovate, innovate, innovate. That's kind of, give us some. If you're gonna bombard people with content, at least make it exciting and fresh.
I like. I know we're getting so much shows between all the Marvel stuff and Star Wars, but if you don't like this show, you don't have to wait long for the next one to come around.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't think like One Division's coming in. We'll get to Marvel in a second, but One Division's coming in January. Then in March is the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Then in May is Loki. So like that's like they're all short. You finish one show, you're going on to the next show. So like that's pretty cool. Like I don't know if that's going to be there. We'll just throw shit at a wall and whatever sticks. We'll make a season 2 of it. But yeah, like week to week, we're going to have something to talk about with Disney Plus, and that's something that HBO Max need to bring to their platform as well. But yeah, I'm excited for all the Star Wars stuff.
Definitely. And yeah, as you say, in terms of what that means for the rest of the industry, I think you got to kind of start stepping up. I don't want to say Netflix has stale content, but when you compare it to what other streaming services, namely Disney Plus, is starting to offer, Netflix is kind of like maybe the ground underneath where it's standing isn't looking just as secure as it once was. I mean, we already know that Disney has tens of millions of subscribers. I think it's like up to like 85 million or something like that. Like, and then they come out with their investor day and they go, oh yeah, here's like, you wanted some new Star Wars? Well, here's like 10 new fucking shows that you haven't heard of. Oh, you like Marvel? Oh, here's like a fucking billion loads of details. We'll announce several new films and all this shit. It's like, everyone's kind of like, oh fuck, we kind of gotta got stepping up our game a little bit. Which brings me back to that whole point of saying, well, how do you not greenlight a Batfleck series? How do you not greenlight the stuff that already has the momentum, that already has the attention, where a lot of the marketing is essentially already done for you? They've already said that the Snyder Cut is a success for HBO Max. So how do you not just go, oh yeah, fuck it, we'll just drop a Batfleck series and then go from there? I mean, most probably it could just be down to, well, again, I'm not going to guess as to Ben's mental state about the whole thing, but it could be riding on the success of the Snyder Cut. I wouldn't be surprised if that was like the sole determining factor. If the Snyder Cut comes out and everyone's like, whatever, that was air or that was bad, they're not really kind of going to go, okay, let's double down on that. I mean, who knows? Maybe they still would, but they've got to be looking at where, from a purely business perspective, they have to be looking at where the money's going or where the money's coming in from. If people are all coming in for Zack Snyder's Justice League and the Snyderverse on HBO Max, even if it's not being that amazingly well critically received, they're not going to give a shit. They're going to say, hey, from a purely business perspective, ignoring the quality of what's coming through, they're going to say, we're making money.
Yeah, simple. And that's the way it's gone right now. Like, even we're just talking about Marvel and DC, or Marvel and Star Wars here. We're not even talking about all the animated stuff they announced yesterday, or the Buzz Lightyear film, or the Mighty Ducks reunion, or all this sort of stuff. So there's something for everybody. If you don't like certain things, you can go watch that. And it's very much like what DC are doing right now with all their content. Like, you got the CW. If you don't like that, go watch Wonder Woman. If you don't like that, watch the Batman. If you don't like that, watch the R-rated Joker. If you don't like that, come over and watch this Zack Snyder film. So yeah, so it's cool, and we're gonna have at least we're gonna have something to watch. Even if we go into another lockdown in 2021, we're gonna have more stuff to watch.
Yeah, well, maybe Disney's in on some. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some one conspiracy nut that's saying that the pandemic has, it was engineered by Disney so that we would all sit inside and watch their content. Oh yeah, as long as the content's good. All right. Aside from all the death, but whatever. We'll move on to a slightly more positive note and begin our discussion on Marvel and the future that has cinematically and on, I nearly said HBO Max, on Disney Plus. Personally, in terms of all of the things that I saw, my hype, and I did not think that this was going to be the case, the most hype I have is for Loki. 100%. I saw that trailer and I was like, I am fucking sold. I thought that trailer was really cool. I thought like whenever they announced like the first big slate of all the stuff that's coming on HBO Max, it did kind of feel initially like, as you said, let's fling a load of shit at the wall and just see what sticks. But having seen the trailers and seeing kind of what's going on already, I'm like, okay, I really didn't think Loki was going to be at the top of my list, but it absolutely is now, for sure.
Yeah, that trailer was pretty cool. Like, the show I was really looking forward to from Disney Plus Marvel was WandaVision, because it looked different. I've said that before, but that Loki trailer just was my favorite from yesterday. It was just, I wasn't expecting it to look anything like that.
Yeah,
it looked different, and I don't know what I was really expecting, but I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
and next May we're going to get to watch it. I think it's 6 episodes or something like that. Owen Wilson is in it. I love Owen Wilson, one of my favorite comedians and movies like that. And his brother Luke did a pretty good job on Stargirl as well, and another DC show. So yeah, it's cool to see all these characters, and I've got to see a glimpse at Scarlett Johansson. Maybe it's not her, but Black Widow.
Yes,
well. There was a little small glimpse of that. Yeah, and the place that he seems to be trapped in, I don't know, it seems like a prison or a controlled place, but it looks like, for me, from what I've seen from the trailer, is he's going to try and escape that place and then maybe do a kind of a heist in a plane to get money or something. I don't know.
I think they're doing, the MCU was saying that the whole myth of DB Cooper or whatever was, this again, I don't know the full backstory, but it was like he boarded a plane and then he wasn't on it when it landed, and he had a load of money, and so obviously I think he took a parachute and jumped out the plane and then was never found ever again. So the fact that they're just kind of saying like, oh yeah, that was Loki. I was like, when I first saw him and I saw him in the shades, I was kind of like, I know the DB Cooper thing isn't something that everybody knows, but I was like, is he meant to look like DB Cooper there, or maybe like Agent Smith from the Matrix or something? And yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, this looks pretty cool. And and then obviously if he gets teleported off through the light bridge or whatever it's called, then it's like, okay, well, that's their explanation for he was never found ever again. But hell yeah, yeah. I mean, like WandaVision, my hype remains kind of the same, if not a little bit more elevated. That it just looks good, you know. But yeah, no, Loki definitely took the cake for me. I was just like, yeah, whoa, I'm actually really excited about this now. Come on.
Yeah, the trailer, like we don't know what's going to happen. Like, is it actually happening, or is there dreams going on, or is he being experimented on, or like there's so many mysteries around it. Like, is WandaVision got so, or is Wanda? I keep saying WandaVision because the title is called WandaVision, but has she a lot to do with all these kind of weird scenarios happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Is she the reason that What If is happening as well, the animated show? Like, because she's supposed to really mess up timelines and stuff like that in the multiverse. But yeah, it just looks like Tom Hiddleston looks like he's just having a great time.
Yeah,
it's just like
that came across 100%. He looked like he was having the time of his fucking life.
Yeah, they just said, right, dress up, we'll put a camera on you and do what you want. That's what it looked like. And he just looks free in the role. And yeah, I agree that trailer for me was the best one. And it's gonna be very funny. Like the WandaVision trailer come out as well. Like, I thought the first WandaVision trailer was better, but this one still got me hyped. Like, what was your opinion on that trailer that we got to see?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably even enjoyment for both of them. They are really just not giving anything away. I think this trailer was had a bit more of an emphasis on like the creepiness of the whole thing, like reality kind of, Wanda kind of questioning reality and everything kind of glitching the hell out. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that this is my biggest compliment to the MCU was that it had just nailed its formula. It got it down to a T, and it was making films that most of the films, in my opinion, weren't great, but none of them were like god awful. None of them were, ones that, to me, my personal opinion. But what you couldn't say is that they weren't like inconsistent. You couldn't say they were inconsistent. They were doing the same thing over and over again, and it just worked, obviously, because that's the biggest cinematic universe ever. But that being said, and I know we've talked about this before, one of my favorite things about the DC universe is the insane diversity and all these different projects in the same universe having completely distinct tones and vibes. So this Phase 4 stuff and the new shows, I am really digging it. I am really digging just like, okay, WandaVision's going to be this like mind-bending, reality questioning, mindfuck of a show. Loki is this kind of like, is he trying to escape from prison? He's traveling through space and time and all of this cool stuff. Is he being used by the people, this institution in order to do some work? Is he trying to escape? Is he doing heists? Whatever. That's really fucking cool. And then you still have your consistencies in things like Spider-Man or whatever, the things that are going to be that kind of standard Marvel treatment. But it's like, you guys are kind of starting to push the boat out a little bit. You guys are starting to get a little bit freaky with it. So I'm 100% on board with that. I just hope that they don't, like, when it gets to actually watching the show, it's just kind of like, oh, this is just a Marvel film in a TV show now. Like, it's just like, come on, guys, get a bit more creative with it. I understand the need for having this nice umbrella approach to everything, but you've done your end game. You've made your $3 billion jillion. Get a bit weird with it now.
Yeah, and like the WandaVision show, it seems like that Wanda is kind of, for me, she's kind of taken over this town, and she's making this false reality of a world that she would have wanted to have, a family with vision and neighbors and all that kind of stuff. But it may be that these people are all under her control and they're doing what she wants. So that's pretty dark already, and looks like she could be a villain. And if it does tie over to Doctor Strange 2 and in Spider-Man 3, as Kevin Feige said, she could be the overall villain. She could be the bad person in all this. And I think through each episode, our perspective of Wanda will change a little bit, because we'll be thinking, oh, she's a good person. Yeah, we've seen her from Avengers, but then there might be some dark moments as well where we're like, well, that's not the character I know. But I just think Elizabeth Olsen, she just shines on the screen. She just glows. Like, she's a very attractive woman, but on the screen, she just seems to be glowing. Yeah. And she looks like she had a great time with that as well. But yeah, two very good trailers. Now, the other trailer that I wasn't as too excited over, I thought was okay. They showed a lot of action, but they didn't show much story, was The Falcon and Winter Soldier. That show is coming out in March. I'm sure there will be another trailer and stuff like that, but didn't really tell us much about what's happening. I'm not too convinced on the chemistry between Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. What was your opinion on that trailer?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat in terms of like that's being my least hyped out of all the projects. Like I think one of the things that I've never really been able to say out of a Marvel property was, I mean, maybe Winter Soldier was probably the highest of it, but action has never really seemed to have been the MCU's kind of forte. But then again, obviously that's a nice coincidence that I say the Winter Soldier was the best if we've got Falcon and Bucky in the same property. But I don't know, it's never really been kind of like I've there hasn't been like a Batman v Superman warehouse scene in the MCU. There hasn't been a moment where I just finished an action scene in a Marvel film and I'm like, holy crap, that was amazing. They've had their epic moments in an action kind of context, like say Thor arriving in Wakanda in Infinity War. Like, that's fucking sick. But there's never been like a whole big like action set piece that's really got me going. And I mean, I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier, the main strengths of that, or the main aims, seem to be like espionage and action. And it's like, okay, well, I'm sure you can get the espionage down. We've had our Hydra, we've had our conspiracies, and we've had our taking on shadowy agencies and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I'm sure you could get that kind of vibe down. But it's whether the action, which seems to be the most important in that show. Loki seems to have a little bit of action, but it seems to be this kind of, I want to say like almost a detective-driven story of Loki kind of leading his own charge for freedom or whatever to escape from whatever's going on. WandaVision is obviously not an action show, but those two shows seem to, from the very limited things I've seen, seem to have their tones kind of set and really well done. Falcon and Winter Soldier just kind of looks a bit more generic. I'm not saying it looks bad in any way. It still looks great. Production value looks pretty cool, and some of the things that we saw in the trailer definitely got me excited. But like, I think it would have been nice to maybe see a little bit more, something that helps it stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, I hope they're not like, oh, let's just rip off the Winter Soldier and make it like gritty and like a detective thing where we have to try and uncover what's this big conspiracy or something like that. The action looks pretty good. Like that tracking shot of Falcon was pretty cool, where he's flying and dodging shots and stuff like that. That was cool. I think like the action for Winter Soldier was pretty cool with Black Panther, and then of course Bucky or Civil War, say, with Black Panther, and in Winter Soldier with Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow and Bucky when they were fighting. That was pretty cool. So I hope they bring some of that stuff into it again, and like to have someone there who has done it in Sebastian Stan, so he can bring a cool element to it. But yeah, I hope it's different. Like, there was a cool enough line in the trailer. It's like the history of that shield is complicated, or the suit, whatever they said. I just think they could have used something a little bit cooler. They could have like said the history of that shield is hard to live up to, or something. Like, I think it's going to be about them trying to live up to being what Chris Evans' Captain America was, trying to wear the suit of Captain America, or hold the shield of Captain America and actually be Captain America instead of just holding it. Yeah. I think that's a good that'll be a cool element to have in the actual show. But which one of them will end up being Captain America? Will they go the diversity route and have Anthony Mackie, or will they pick Sebastian Stan because he was his best friend? What way will they go? But I will watch it, of course. But and then what's the villain from Civil War?
Baron Zemo, I believe.
Yeah, they didn't show much of him either. And even in Civil War, wasn't the best villain. He wasn't too interesting. We have Subspatsy says, I'm really interested in the quality level they showed for these shows. Yeah, they look like movies. Like they actually like to be movie level quality, and I might start being more gentle with the Disney Plus MCU stuff if they keep a Mandalorian level of quality. Well, yeah, and if that's all we want, really good quality, and these shows do look like movies, then yeah, we're gonna watch them.
Yeah, I mean, I think whether people like it or not, streaming is basically the norm now, and Disney want to be saying, okay, this is I mean, they've obviously got their shows like Mando and whatnot, and they've been at it with Disney Plus for a year, but this is like their first real kind of sufficient offering of saying like, okay, now we're entering into streaming. Previously it's kind of been like, okay, we've got our shows that we've created just for Disney Plus, but a large part of our catalog is stuff that's already been released. Now it's kind of us saying, now we're kind of throwing down the gauntlet. You got to set a high bar, because at the end of the day, people aren't going to be really, what the general audience is not going to be wanting to be forking out money for 3 streaming services a month, because 3 or 4 the more streaming services you add to that list, the more money you're paying. And yeah, you're getting a hell of a lot of content, but it's like, I don't want to be paying like 50, 60 quid a month to just be able to keep up with all these shows. You have to be really laying down your mark and saying, this is why you need this streaming service. This is why you need to be with Disney Plus. So this is why you need to be with HBO Max, which is obviously good because that means competition, and that means that they'll be kind of really upping the game to convince people to sign up to these services. But I don't know. My main hope is just that HBO Max just kind of stands up and goes, whoa, okay, all right, hold on a second. Alongside all these movies that we've got, how would you like this and this and this? Just hopefully not in a purely retaliatory sense to what Disney did. Hopefully this is stuff that they've actually genuinely given thought to and been like, yeah, we should probably do a Batfleck series or something like that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we really need to do a Batfleck series now.
Yeah, and like, yeah, probably being reactionary again, but they have to do something. I think like if you give Ben Affleck the money, if you give Ben Affleck the script, if you give him everything he wants, he's not going to make a bad show, and that's just like that's a fact for me. He wouldn't make a bad show or a bad movie.
Yeah, he might have won an Oscar or so, you know. He may have made a couple of really fucking good films.
And even Joe Manganiello was talking about how Ben Affleck's script was inspired by David Fincher movies or inspired by the Frank Miller Daredevil comic book. Like, that's some pretty dark and gritty source material to be reading and basing your movie off, but also some high quality stuff. So like that would have been brilliant. But these shows, as Subs Batsy says, they look like movie quality, and if we're going to be tuning in week to week to watch an episode that 60 minutes of movie quality, then like we're going to watch it no problem whatsoever, and we're going to say, yeah, I want to have Disney Plus because look what they're giving me. You know, they have some cheesy stuff for kids and stuff like that, but these Star Wars stuff, these Marvel stuff, are pretty cool, and I'm interested. We also got confirmation that Haley Steinfeld is playing Hawkeye's daughter. Of course, we've seen set photos and stuff, but do you think she's a good casting for to play Jeremy Renner's daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I'm not going to pretend that I'm fully familiar with her filmography or anything like that, but just simply from things that I've seen so far, I think just on face value alone, she seems like somebody who would play really well alongside Jeremy Renner and have some nice kind of cast chemistry for sure, which I think is basically going to be the core of that series. Am I particularly excited for a Hawkeye show? Not necessarily. It's again, when we see more, maybe I'm perfectly open to changing my mind. Like Disney has shown that my excitement levels for certain properties has been maybe misallocated or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's I think she's a good choice. What about you?
Yeah, I liked her in Bumblebee. She was in that movie, and she had like a bubbly presence to her. She was like really easy to watch and just feel like you're on a journey with her. I think I've seen her in a few other kind of teen comedies or rom-coms and stuff, and she was okay. So yeah, I think and like even though set photos, she really stands out. She looks like she's having a lot of fun. So yeah, that's a show that I'm not as interested in. Like Hawkeye isn't one of my favorite characters or anything, but the cast that they have for that is actually pretty good. Like they have his second name is Dalton. He was on Better Call Saul. He's a very good actor. You've got an actor. I think it was like I forget as well, but there's another actor from Fargo season 2, brilliant actor as well. And then the woman who was in Bates Motel, she's in a lot of those horror movies as well. Vera Farmiga, I think she's in a great actress as well. Yeah. So like that's a pretty good cast, and I'm more interested in the cast right now than I am in the show. But the cast is the reason that I'm going to check it out.
Tony Dalton.
Yeah, Tony Dalton. Yeah, he's if you haven't seen Better Call Saul, or even if you have seen Better Call Saul, he's brilliant. If you haven't seen Better Call Saul, you should just watch it because it's a brilliant show. But he plays such an interesting character in it, and he's just a badass, and I can't wait to see him in a Marvel. Like he'll be toned down a bit, of course, because it's Marvel, but he still has that kind of like fun, like macho presence to him, and I think he'll bring a lot to it. But yeah,
Florence Pugh is also going to be appearing in the show as well. So
that's a great cast already.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, if you're gonna give more Florence Pugh, like, hell yeah, I'm gonna check it out for sure. Like, you can't go wrong with her. I think she's a phenomenal actress. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, we've got like loads of other details. We've got confirmation of a Fantastic Four movie that's coming out. They're gonna try and do it again. I think no matter what happens, I think if Fantastic Four, if this new one does well, then obviously that's that. If it flops, I think they're just gonna let it die. Like I think they're just gonna be like, right, fuck it. We're washing our hands of this goddamn franchise that we can't seem to get off the ground cinematically. And it will be directed by John Watts.
John Watts,
Yeah, from the Spider-Man movies, which I've seen a lot of people maybe not getting overly excited about that directorial choice. I mean, I personally kind of quite enjoyed Far From Home, but Homecoming was to me. But yeah, no, I personally thought Far From Home was pretty good. So I think people maybe just getting the panties in a bunch.
Yeah, and just to go through some of the chats that's in the comments there. So Batsy goes cough Batfleck versus Deathstroke cough. Yeah, that's a show that needs to happen. That Batfleck or Deathstroke movie needs to happen. That sounds like an amazing script. Like
and careful with that cough, man. Especially at this time of this time of a pandemic, you don't want to be caught out with one of those, no matter how much you love Batfleck.
Yeah, that's true. And then Super Batsy goes, even just on paper, all these shows are at least interesting to me. I think everyone can admit that as well. They're pretty interesting. Naveen Shadkar goes, hi guys. Naveen's good. He's a good guy on Twitter. Follow him for a while. Post some good stuff. Super Batsy goes, guys, imagine if they get Liv Taylor back for She-Hulk. That'd be pretty cool as well. They're already bringing back some characters from that Ed Norton movie.
Yeah,
did you watch that Ed Norton
movie? And Tim Roth's coming back as Abomination. I'm just trying to look up the confirmed cast so far. We've only got like 4 people. It's showing me. It's just showing me everyone who's voiced She-Hulk. Like, no, I don't want that.
If you look up the Incredible Hulk cast, you'll probably get a quicker tell. Which character are you looking for?
No, I'm just looking for who's been confirmed for the She-Hulk show. And there was Mark Ruffalo. And then they did also tease that as she operates in the legal domain, that maybe you never know who she's going to run into. And I think the obvious conclusion there was that Charlie Cox's Daredevil would be making an appearance. I think that's just where everyone's mind went to first, which is, I don't know, that seems to just be where things are going. And there were obviously rumors, not confirmed yet, that he will be appearing in Spider-Man 3 alongside everyone and their dog.
Grace Randolph was saying that he could be in Spider-Man 3 and he could be in She-Hulk. So
it's not 100% confirmed, but I think they know how popular it is. I'm very surprised that Daredevil has not been renewed for another season, but obviously I think the goal is to just bring the stuff that did well from other properties just into the MCU. Let's put them in these big films, and then I don't know, maybe we'll do another season, but we'll MCU it a little bit, which I don't think maybe a lot of Daredevil fans will be particularly happy about, because it does strike a very different tone to the MCU. But hey, they're showing right now that they're mixing up a lot. If they're making if Doctor Strange 2 is meant to be this not horror, but this kind of like scary thrillery film, who knows what they'll do. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Doctor Strange. I thought it was a really good film. I'm very excited to see them go into this multiverse concept. I'm just a little bit concerned when Marvel said that they're going to mix it up and try and go for something horror-y, that they're going to MCUify horror. I really don't think that works.
Yeah. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, to have Sam Raimi coming in. And great director.
Full faith in Sam Raimi.
Yeah, so I'll say that will go well. Comedy videos goes John Watts is directing it. That Fantastic Four movie, yeah. And like I think the Spider-Man movies he did are likable. They're good movies, not anything special or anything like that. But maybe Kevin Feige sees something in them that he could do a great Fantastic Four movie, or maybe he sees the way that he's directing this Spider-Man 3, that he's able to handle all these multiple characters and give them screen time. So maybe that's a reason. Comedy videos also gives his piece on that. He goes, he doesn't understand comic book characters, so that's a fair point as well. John Watts doesn't. And Naveen Shakar goes, do you think they'll greenlit Spider-Man 4 with Tobey, sequel for Andrew's Spidey? There's an interesting thing about this as well, because yesterday they didn't mention much about Spider-Man 3 at the Disney Investor Day, and Spider-Man is a huge character. Yeah. Do you think they would have a lot of stuff about that? But that's probably because Sony probably want to announce this stuff themselves in their own capacity. But do I think there's a possibility that Sony could do their own Spider-Man again on their own theatrical run, maybe a Miles Morales or a Tobey or Andrew coming back for more? I think they could, because I think they want to do more into the Spidey for stuff.
Yeah, no, I think.
Do you think with that?
I think the general plan moving forward is that I think this is a pretty safe assumption that they are gonna bring in the multiverse with Spider-Man 3, and they're primarily using Spider-Man 3 so that can set up, I would think, a Sinister Six film. And I think I remember replying to Sean O'Connell's tweet about this, and he retweeted saying that he agreed that I think the best plan for Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse in general would be Spider-Man 3 still needs to be fully focused on Tom Holland. Like, it cannot be this all the Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six or whatever in his, defining film. I mean, yeah, they kind of did it with Captain America, and that, but I think at the end of the day, like, Captain America was obviously still the core drive of that narrative. I think that there's a risk that if they try and do that route, that Spider-Man 3 is going to get overcrowded. So I think that in my opinion, if I was the one making the judgment calls, I would be saying, okay, let's use Spider-Man 3 to set up the existence of multiple Spider-Man in the same universe, and then I would not be surprised if Sony then go, okay, we're going to do 3 Spider-Man against Sinister Six. I think that's like a surefire recipe for success. I think giving the 3 Spider-Men their own film would be awesome, and it would give it that story, the breathing room. And I would be really fucking hyped if they did that.
But even if they wanted to say, okay, Marvel, you can have Tom Holland's Spider-Man in your Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, like you said, the idea there of opening up the multiverse. So the multiverse is expanded more on Sony's world with Venom, with Vulture, with Morbius. And so then Andrew Garfield and Tom Maguire come back into the Sonyverse, if you want to call it that. Spunk is the other name that they come up. And then maybe they do an origin of Miles Morales.
Yeah.
And that could be what they do. So Tom Holland stays in the MCU and does his own thing. The multiverse is restored, and then it goes back over, and we think everything's okay, but then it's opened again in Andrew Garfield's world or Tobey Maguire's world. And that'd be awesome. And like Jared Leto had something interesting as well. He says in his movie, Morbius, the Spider World is going to be expanded, or the world is going to be opened up. So maybe that's what's going to happen. And if they do that, like, I'll give you all my money, because it's going to be it's cool to just see.
Yeah, and I think going back to the original question, do I think that this would result in a green lighting of Spider-Man 4? I don't know. I think that the surefire, like, guaranteed thing to do would be a Sinister Six versus 3 Spider-Man film. I think that's just like almost a necessity at this point. I think everyone would be fucking excited about that. Do I think that there would be a Spider-Man 4? I really cannot tell. I think it's so up in the air. I think there are numerous factors at play, like how well received is Doctor Strange 2, to see if Sam Raimi's kind of still got it. I think if you are going to do a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, you have to give that to Sam Raimi. I would, I'd be very happy to see it. I really would. But, what kind of story do you go for? I think the multiverse is this, easy thing to explore. Maybe doing a film where Tobey Maguire is the mentor for Miles Morales. I think that could be a really good thing. The game and the Spider-Verse animated film has shown that Miles Morales is a very liked character, is a very popular character in such a short period of time as well. It's like, okay, let's make one film, and everyone's like, whoa, I really like this character. I really like Miles Morales. And then let's make, a new Spider-Man game. And I was like, whoa, this is fucking awesome. And within, like, 2 giant contributions within different spheres of entertainment, Miles is almost becoming a household name in terms of Spider-Man. So, from a general perspective, I mean. So
it's like they're trying to build up Miles Morales, so when he does hit the big screen, he can be a star, because like you go with Peter Parker because it's a safe option. Everyone knows Peter Parker, Spider-Man. But then if you start building up Miles Morales in other medias, comic books, games, animated shows, animated movies, then it starts gathering a fan base, and then when it hits the big screen, you could use Tobey Maguire's star power of being Spider-Man before, or Andrew Garfield's star power of being Spider-Man before, to propel Miles Morales as a character, and whatever actor plays him. So yeah, people would go to the movies to see Tobey Maguire back or Andrew Garfield back, but they'll be coming out talking about, geez, that Miles Morales kid was pretty cool, and he's a pretty cool Spider-Man.
It could easily be a really good way to pass the torch. And I mean, I know you kind of had Tom Holland in already, but by that point, he's already had his trilogy. He's been in like 6 other Marvel films at this point.
Yeah, but he could be the MCU Spider-Man. You could have Miles Morales be the Sony Spider-Man, and they could coexist in different universes and have their own movies, which is a possibility. Because like, how many are they going to do more Spider-Man solo films in the MCU world after 3, or will they just have him pop up in other movies?
Yeah, I would doubt that he's lined up for much more. I think, I don't know. As soon as you start putting like Thor, I mean, is getting away with it somehow. But as soon as you start putting 4 at the end of a character's name, I think people kind of start to go like, how many more of these are you going to do? So yeah, the idea of them coexisting, definitely. And, maybe with the way the MCU is going, a Civil War 2 could easily happen with a new, with this new cast. And then you can have Tom Holland right at the front of that for sure.
Yeah, and like you talk about Thor, like Thor kind of changed its dynamic big time. Like Thor 1 and 2 are completely different from 3 and 4. Like so that's why that has gone a like Thor 3 felt like Thor 1 because the character was changed so much. It felt like a new trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have Thor 3, 4, and 5, and then people wouldn't be too tired because like Chris Hemsworth's Thor is more of a comedian now with his muscles out and just having some fun, which is okay. It works. So, but I wanted to get your opinion as well. Like we've got some other shows that maybe they're just doing them for the sake of doing, like an Iron Heart show where it's going to be a young girl who is going to be a young girl Iron Man. Does that bring any? Are you interested in that whatsoever?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, Disney is obviously going at this point and saying like, hey, we are going to bring in a lot of new content that's going to appeal to as wide a market, but we're going to cast our net as wide as possible. So, yeah, I mean, I think that is that. And this was something I kind of put my tinfoil hat on when we talked about this last time. They got past the endgame threshold, and now they're kind of putting this uber emphasis on diversity and whatnot. You know, you take a look at like the group, what am I talking, like the production crew behind Captain Marvel. 2, incredibly diverse. You're bringing in Miss Marvel. You've got the Pakistani American character. You've got the Shang-Chi. You know, they are really going all out with diversity. So I think, I mean, that's obviously a good thing in my books. So I think something like Iron Hearts is basically just a logical corollary of all of that. It's just a sensible next step to just, well, let's keep going. Let's try and capture appealing to a younger demographic now. Let's try and appeal to perhaps people who still feel that they're underrepresented in a genre where we're, you know, because Marvel is dropping like fucking 4,000 shows, right? If there is a noticeable sect of the general population that is kind of still being misrepresented or underrepresented, we know from the kind of the social media environment that we live in that shit's not going to go unnoticed. So I don't think it's like tokenism or them appealing or anything. I just think like a story like that is a easy way to carry on the Iron Man story hopefully without it being like, well, actually, no, in all fairness, this would be like a really obvious Iron Man Jr. kind of, like a mini-me version of Iron Man. But it makes sense, and I think it works. And I think for people who, I know it's an argument I keep bringing up about representation and stuff like that, there will be people who are watching that show and going like, wow, like I actually feel like this is a show for me. And at the end of the day, that's probably the most important thing. There weren't any like show reveals or whatever that made me like roll my eyes and be like, oh God, you know. So, but I will say, yeah, there were things that I wasn't as excited for. I'd say Ironheart would be one of them. I was just like, okay, cool. You know, I probably won't watch that. But if it's any good, maybe I will. So yeah, my long story short, my reaction to a lot of them was just, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then there were a few things that I was like, okay, fuck yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, like it's hard to get excited for stuff that you don't really see a trailer for or a
Yeah,
poster or
yeah,
anything
that's
like
another
that.
thing.
So like with the Loki stuff, it was a trailer. We could watch it and we could say, "Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to that." But now, like, we don't know how long these shows will take to be made or anything. Like the Iron Heart show could be 2022 or 2023.
Oh
But
yeah,
another one actually pretty interested in was Armor Wars, which is
yeah,
a Don Cheadle Rhodey led series, which is kind of being the tagline is Tony Stark's biggest fears. So again, they're using Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr.'s star power to have create a bit of emphasis on the story. So basically, what's going to happen is it's probably the stuff that Tony Stark has created over the last 12 years before he died gets into the wrong hands, and Don Cheadle, of course, working for America or working for the Avengers, or whatever, you probably have to go on a journey. And Don Cheadle as Rhodey, I like him a lot, and I think he doesn't get enough screen time.
yeah. I agree.
Like Iron Man 3, pretty good, and even in Iron Man 2 is when he came into it, wasn't actually. Yeah, Iron Man 2, I
Too,
really
yeah.
liked when he came into it. I like him more than the other actor that played before him, but him to get his own show was pretty big. And Don Cheadle, listen, like he isn't too young either. Like he's old enough, so like that's pretty cool that they're giving these characters a good show, a big show to do. Armor Wars. I'm looking forward to that one big time. Are you interested in Don Cheadle?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of my hype for the show, I think it's kind of one of the lesser hype shows. I'm like, okay, well, that looks cool, but yeah, regardless, I'm a massive fan of Don Cheadle's
Yeah,
War Machine. I think he's been like a consistent good thing throughout the entire MCU. So I mean, I'm happy to see that reward. I've seen a lot of calls for social media for him to be in more stuff and for him to have more screen time, as you say. So I definitely think that's it's a good thing. It's one of those things that if like they're going all out to kind of ignore him, you can't ignore my man like that. You can't just do him dirty and just say like, hey Don, you've been in like so many fucking films. Screw you. You're not going to be in anything from Phase 4 going forward. So, yeah, I think it's kind of like, I'm not saying it's like, oh, wait, they had to give him something. I'm just saying I'm glad that they did.
Yeah, like yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that one. I liked him. I like him a lot. Another big one was Samuel L. Jackson coming back for Secret Invasion, which is now I know that you like Captain Marvel and you probably liked Ben Mendelsohn's Skrull
Yes.
character.
I
don't like the Skrulls. I don't like the Skrulls. I don't like how they look. I think the makeup could be a lot better and stuff. But anyway, I like Samuel L. Jackson and him two coming back for a Secret Invasion show. So people who don't really know what Secret Invasion is, it's kind of where the Skrulls, well, in the comics, they might change it for the show, but in the comics, the Skrulls are kind of impersonating superheroes. And yeah, so that could be used for pretty bad stuff if they wanted to make the heroes look bad, if they were impersonate Captain America, or if they wanted to impersonate Thor and do something bad, get them in the media where they're now turned evil or something, which could lead to another civil war or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. Or you could even have, we got to see a little bit of an end game was Captain America v Captain America. You could have the good Avengers versus the bad Avengers or something like that. Pretty interesting, something different. But what's your anticipation for Secret Invasion?
Well, I mean, originally I was one of those people who thought that the Spider-Man 3 route that they were going to do would be they would have a Skrull impersonate Peter Parker, and then he'd appear and say like, hey, I'm not Spider-Man, and then Tom Holland, would go swinging by or whatever, and it's like, see, I'm not Spider-Man. Like, as soon as I came out of Captain Marvel, as soon as I came out of Far From Home, my first thought was, okay, how are they gonna, defend Peter now that his identity has been revealed? Yeah, I was like, yeah, they'll do the Skrull thing. Now I'm not sure. I have no idea what they're gonna do. In terms of my hype for Secret Invasion, yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of people who kind of thought that might be like the next big event for the MCU, would be that they would kind of start revealing here and there that certain characters throughout the MCU were Skrulls or whatever, and then it'd be kind of like, oh shit, was that character a Skrull? Was that character whatever? And then eventually building up into this like all-out war where you have, as you say, maybe Avengers fighting the Skrull counterparts and they have all their powers and all that shit. Like, that could have been a really interesting route to go down. Maybe it's still there, but I mean, I'm all for more of Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. I think he's definitely one of the highlights of the entire cinematic universe. So yeah, again, it's one of those ones that there's not a whole lot to go off. So on face value, I'm just kind of judging based on limited things like the cast and whatnot. And I do not disapprove, as you mentioned. I did like Captain Marvel. I have to be very careful with my words. I can't say, oh yeah, I fucking loved it, and then all of a sudden everyone's just like, fuck you, you know what good movies are, or whatever. But Ben Mendelsohn, I think, was probably the highlight of that film. I thought he was great. And yeah, so to be able to see more of him, I'm definitely hyped about. It seems like one of those shows that would seem important to the entire fabric of the MCU going forward, so it does seem like an important one to watch. But yeah, I'd have to see a bit more first.
Yeah, it might be set in space as well, because the last place we got to see Samuel L. Jackson was in space, so that'd be pretty interesting. But yeah, like the comic is pretty cool. Like, I did a bit of reading up in the comic, and it'd be an interesting thing to do and adapt to the big screen, but they don't fully go to the comic direction a lot of times, so we'll have to wait and see, of course. But you're adding great talent to a show, and them two are great actors, so I'm sure they signed up for a reason other than the money, I hope. but hopefully it's going to be good fun. Let's got some comments in the chat here. Naveen Shakir says, at least I need Andrew's Spider-Man and Tom Hardy's Venom in the same universe. That'd be pretty cool to see them interact. And I'm looking forward to Venom 2, because Andy Serkis, of course, is the director, and I think it's going to be a lot darker than the first one. Soups Patsy goes, imagine how messy it'll be to do a full rewatch in 3 years of the MCU. Yeah, you'd be like,
Jesus Christ.
movie, show, movie, and then you're like, what do I watch here? Ironheart, and then you have Secret Invasion.
It'd be like, oh, okay, I've got to get to like episode 3 of this season, and then I've got to watch the entirety of this season, and then I can come back to this one and keep going forward. It's going to be fucking insane.
It's worse than trying to watch the Clone Wars, because you can't watch that in order. You have to watch like episode 2 of season 2 first before you watch episode 1 of season 1.
They just don't want you falling asleep. You want to say, hey, I've been watching the MCU for like 10, 15 years. Like, So like, okay, we're gonna keep you on your toes, you know. It's gonna get to like the end of it. It's like, I don't know if you ever had them before. I can't remember what they're called, like fighting fantasy books or whatever, where you would read through like a narrative and then it'd be like, oh, you have this, combat thing or whatever, and if you won, turn to page this and then carry on, and it'd be like a whole non-linear narrative in a single book. Like I could easily see you get to the end of one episode of like Loki or whatever, and it says like, please change to this episode on this season, and
you can't you can't just put on Clone Wars when you're in bed and just relax and have a chill night. Because then the next episode comes and you have to, like, what's going on? You start having anxiety and stuff, and you need to get up and start changing the episodes, and you're like, fuck this. But Siani says, hi guys, how you doing? And Naveen Shakir goes, imagine if they bring Ben Affleck as Daredevil in Spider-Man 3.
I mean, like, anything's possible at this point, even if it's just like a quick glimpse, like it's just like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I remember the end of Into the Spider-Verse. Obviously that post-credit scene where you had the famous Spider-Man meeting Spider-Man and pointing at each other. I think Oscar Isaac was voicing one of them. So like, yeah, I mean, maybe Spider-Man 3 will do something like that. Will they have a moment where Tom is like going through like hundreds of different universes, and all of a sudden you just see like Ben Affleck in the background? Like, what the fuck is going on here? You got to do it right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm sure a lot of the DC hardcore fans would get very annoyed over that. But we already talked a little bit about She-Hulk. Of course, Moon Knight we don't know much about either. Didn't even announce Oscar Isaac, actually.
Yeah,
I was surprised at. So maybe he's not fully signed up, or maybe that Moon Knight is a long time away from now because he's going to be doing that Metal Gear, is it?
Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, so he might be signed up for a while. So I don't know if that Moon Knight is happening with him. It could be somebody else. Miss Marvel, of course, is kind of a younger Captain Marvel, is it? Is that what that show is about?
Yeah, well, again, I'm not gonna. I don't know her exact relationship, but she will be in Captain Marvel 2 as well. So there will be a strong connection with those two properties for sure. So if you're a fan of one, I think the other one basically becomes essential viewing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Probably Captain Marvel will be a mentor to Miss Marvel, probably train her to be the next big hero or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Then we have Captain Marvel 2, which we have. You just said that actually. Sorry. And then the Guardians of the Galaxy will be coming out in 2023. So with James Gunn coming back to direct, they're also going to do a holiday special, so a Disney Plus holiday special. So I presume it would just be gags and comedies for 30 minutes straight or 40 minutes straight. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like they're going to shoot it on set of Guardians 3, so maybe it's going to be an actual episode of action and stuff like that. So James Gunn, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that cast of the Guardians perfectly lends itself to something like a goofy Christmas special. I think you can just kind of see that, they already have that chemistry as a team, and I think it will just be just one of those things where it's like, oh, it's Christmas time. Yeah, I'll give that Christmas special a watch, and then it will just be like, yeah, that was pretty good. I can just see that kind of being the trajectory of the whole thing. But I'm all for it. It's just something a little bit different. And I like to see that.
And even they're doing a Groot series as well.
Oh yeah. There are a couple of things where I was kind of like, okay, all right, fair enough. Like, it kind of seems like you're just naming things now and just seeing what the reaction is on social media, but.
Well, we don't have theaters open. Let's get that merchandise going. Let's get more Groot stuff out there. But that's all exciting. And James Gunn, for someone whose career seemed to be dead a few years ago, is now doing the Suicide Squad film, which will probably be R-rated. A Peacemaker HBO Max show with John Cena. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He's going to be involved with the I Am Groot show, and he's going to be directing the holiday special. So he is thriving at the moment in the movie industry. And look, I'm looking forward to all those stuff that he's involved with.
Did you see the stuff that John Cena interview where he was talking about how there's a shot for the Suicide Squad where they're all kind of like they're sat on like a crane or like on top of a building and they're all eating, and John Cena had like I think they're called empanadas or whatever, and he just thought that it would be like in fitting with his character rather than to eat it normally, to just eat it all in one go and just like put the whole thing in his mouth and eat it. And then James obviously noticed that he did that, and he was like, oh, okay, well that was. I want to try and like reshoot that to capture it again, and it took him like 31 attempts to get the shot he wants. So John Cena had it literally like 32 empanadas whole, and it was like he got to the end of it and he was just like ready to collapse because he'd just been eating all of these in one bite. So if you ever see a shot in the Suicide Squad where he's eating food, in one bite. Just know he had eaten 31 of those prior to that take.
And he's a big guy, so
He
if
is.
I don't know if that's how you get that muscular, you eat all that kind of food at the one go 30 times. Maybe I'll try it and I'll get back to you and see if it works. But I don't think it'll have the results that he has. But now let's move on to the movies part. That's all the shows for Disney Plus and the Marvel. So Chadwick Boseman will not be recast
Mm-hmm.
as Black Panther, or I mean, there will not be another actor coming in to take over T'Challa.
As I
Which I
said,
agree.
as I said,
Yeah, yeah, I agree with it as well. Like that's not saying that Chadwick Boseman can't appear in Black Panther 2 in voice or maybe for a second before he puts on his mask or something like that. But I agree with that 100%. I don't think getting another actor in to play T'Challa would have been as good, or just wouldn't have sat right with me. But to know that they're going to move the story forward with T'Challa gone, or maybe he dies in battle or something like that. But I'm just glad they're not recasting. What's your take on that?
yeah, I'm exactly in the same boat. I think it would just be pretty disrespectful. Because I think he's just like that character's his. It's just whether he, regardless of whether he, died or not. Like, you just aren't gonna top that. I think he was just, well, again, it kind of sounds like a closed-minded approach and saying like, oh, I'm just gonna disregard any future interpretations if that happens. But he's not. Black Panther doesn't really come across as a character like Joker, let's say, or Batman, where it's like you can keep kind of providing all these new interpretations of a character. I mean, you probably could, but I just think it's like Heath Ledger, right? And whether it's a case of it's just purely because of the fact that they passed away or not, I don't know. But it's kind of those characters that you will always have a really a strong affinity for another interpretation of a character, but there will always be that kind of standard that character was that specific actor is set. So I think Chadwick is, I think it would take if they ever did bring up Black Panther in another medium ever again, it would take something special to top it.
Yeah, and I think someone else taking up the mantle as Black Panther would be
Yeah, that makes
okay.
sense. Yeah,
Like if it's Shuri or if it's one of the other characters, and then having them to deal with taking over the mantle of T'Challa would be perfect as well. But I'm just glad that it's not going that direction. And it's terrible that they have to do something like this, but even talk about it. But at least I think they'll have a good memory of him in the film. They'll really have tribute to that. But the third Ant-Man film is happening. Like the Ant-Man movies, I've seen bits here and there. I haven't sat down and watched it from start to finish. Even though I love Paul Rudd, I need to sit down and watch them start to finish. But the third one is called Quantum Mania. So they're just like, look, it doesn't matter what we call these movies anymore because they're going to make money. So let's just call it Quantum Mania. But an interesting villain is going to be in it is Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Major is going to be playing the villain. What's your opinion on Ant-Man series or this Ant-Man the third movie? Are you excited?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I love Paul Rudd. I think he's awesome. I think the rest of the cast as well. You got like Evangeline Lilly. I thought she was awesome in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, whatever. You have a very, very solid cast that can easily carry a film on its own. Story or no story, I think they would be great in a room together. Yeah, I don't know. Ant-Man's kind of just been one of those like consistent, films. Hasn't been like particularly outrageously great. Hasn't been bad in my books. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones again. It's kind of I kind of like to wait until we've got something a bit more substantive to work with, outside of cast and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be good.
Like Kang the Conqueror is a big villain, like on the level of Thanos. So maybe that's going to be setting things up for the future. But it's maybe not. If they're going to put it in an Ant-Man movie, we'll have to see as well. Of course, we don't know what the story's even about at this stage. So, like as you said, it's very hard to judge these movies when we don't know anything about them or just know the story or anything. But we know who's going to be in it, and the same cast as the first two movies, and they did a pretty good job, and they're good in the roles, and they're great actors. So, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Ant-Man 3, why not? But yeah, the big one, of course, got people excited was Fantastic Four is finally going to happen at Marvel. And we talked about this at the start as well, but like the Fantastic Four, the first movies that came out in 2005 or 2004 and then 2007, The Rise of Silver Surfer, like those movies for me aren't terrible. They're watchable movies. Like there's nothing like people say they're terrible. Like I think if they were made by the MCU, people would be like, oh my god, they're great movies.
Yeah,
I think
it just put a bit of a tint on the whole thing when it's in the MCU.
Yeah, but like if this movie comes out and it's a Fantastic Four movie and it's with the MCU, people are going to say it's the best thing ever. This is what Marvel an MCU saved the Fantastic Four. That's what they're going to say.
Yeah, that will be the
You know,
narrative for sure.
but your Fantastic Four, are you looking forward to that? And kind of casting you want for that or
Yeah,
anything like
well,
that?
I mean, the one that the casting that's always thrown around is the John Krasinski Emily Blunt duo, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all for that. 100%. I think they'd have a brilliant chemistry. You know, if you've seen A Quiet Place or whatever, you know that these guys, they know what they're doing. They're brilliant actors.
Yeah.
And Emily Blunt will always hold a special place in my heart for Edge of Tomorrow. I think that's like kind of the apex of uh, one of the heights of Tom Cruise's filmography, in my opinion, and her as well, her filmography as well. I think she's just like she's shown that she has what it takes to be a badass in film.
Yeah.
So to see her and John alongside each other, I just think that would work really well. For the rest of the cast, I don't really have any ideas off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm on board with you. I haven't seen the most recent reboot of Fantastic Four, and I know there'll be people in chat saying, "Don't, it's a waste of time," whatever. The original Fantastic Four films, I really enjoyed them. Those are kind of like my first, alongside the Raimi Spider-Man films. Those are kind of like my first foray into comic book movies. So they all always have a special place in my heart as well. So yeah, I'll defend them for sure. But I mean, it's one of those films. It's just like, how many times can you reboot it and hope to get it right? I mean, it works with a hero like Spider-Man because, I mean, I don't really think any of his incarnations have been like overwhelmingly hated, even if there was a negative stance towards Andrew Garfield. But yeah, Fantastic Four does not exactly have the cleanest track record.
No, and like, how are they going to do another origin story of these characters? Like, will the multiverses open them up to be already established in some world?
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
could
know,
easily
I've
see
seen
that
it.
being like a segue. It was just like, oh, well, let's just go through this portal, and oh, look, it's Emily Blunt and John
Yeah,
Krasinski. It's like, all right, well, we'll go from there.
and the 2015 one with Josh Trank, it, it's not bad. Like the first half of that movie is actually pretty good, and then the second half something stupid happens with it. I don't know what happened. Even the last action sequence seems like it should have happened in the middle of the movie, and we're still waiting for the main action sequence to happen. So I don't know what they did. If they just continued what they did in the first two acts, then it would have been a pretty good movie. But
He had to deal with a
a lot
lot
of
of interference as well, didn't
yeah,
he,
there
for
was a
that
lot
film?
of pressure and studio interference, and he was losing the plot as well, and it just didn't work out. But like, even the ones with Chris Evans were enjoyable. Yeah, I agree with you. I started watching those ones with the Raimi Spider-Man movies and then the X-Men with Brian
Mm.
Singer. So yeah, those were the comic book movies that I really got into. But yeah, Fantastic Four. Okay, let's do it. It was always going to happen, but the X-Men seems to be on the back burner, or maybe they'll appear in after this phase or something like that. But yeah, I just wish that Fox never sold all their stuff to Disney because I always liked having more comic book movies. You had DC, you had the Sony Spider-Man stuff, you had the Fox X-Men or Fantastic Four or whatever else they did, Deadpool, you know. So you always had different variations of these characters in different universes. So it was pretty cool that way.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where I'm just kind of riding on the gravy train and hoping that the MCU is kind of like really upping its game now and just kind of say, well, not upping its game, but really expanding its game and just kind of really starting to go, okay, we're going to get weird with it. We're going to have a lot of diversity in the way that we approach these things. It's not going to be as uniform as the MCU has been in its first three phases or so, but
Yeah,
it's an exciting time. Like, and this is the thing. Like, when you had Endgame come out, it was very easy to kind of think, well, where does the MCU go from here? And they seem to be kind of just saying, well, we're just gonna return back to what you love and just kind of really diversify the entire experience, and hopefully that will keep it fresh and keep it going. And I think it's based purely on the reaction to the Investors Day yesterday. It seems to be working, but obviously we have to judge by the content of what we're getting. It's not you can't just throw hundreds of different shows at us and then just be like, yeah, all right, doesn't matter how good or bad it is. At the end of the day, the content's got to be good. But
yeah.
it's a good start for sure.
Yeah, and just kind of the last thing I wanted to address before we finish was Christian Bale, of course, the villain in Thor 4. We've known that for a while, but it makes me think that like maybe he is just doing it for the payday, maybe. But like I know the Batman movies, he would have got a lot of money. The Terminator reboot or the fourth movie in that franchise, he would have got a lot of money for that as well. But I think he probably might have seen something in the script or something that maybe this is going to be a great movie. Like it's an Oscar-winning writer that's doing the script, the Taika
Yeah.
Waititi. So there must be a reason why he wanted to be in this. I'm sure the money is fantastic, and that's probably one reason. But also, he's not going to put himself into a terrible, terrible movie. because he's on a nice roll, Christian Bale, with the movies that he has done in the last few years. But do you think that movie is going to surprise a lot of people at how great it will be?
Yeah, I mean, and this is it's something I mentioned before, is that when you kind of get to, you've completed a trilogy, and then you go, okay, we're going to do a fourth one. It's like, okay, well, at that point, you really have to be upping your game to keep it fresh and whatnot. And obviously, Ragnarok got the reaction that the studio was hoping for. Hopefully, yeah, maybe this will just kind of be a double down of the whole of whatever Ragnarok provided. So, and obviously Christian Bale is going to bring a lot of people to it, and I think you also have the capability in a name like Christian Bale to bring in those people who are kind of like, whatever. I'm not the biggest like superhero person. I like the Nolan trilogy because it wasn't really a superhero trilogy. So bringing in somebody like Christian Bale is like, hey, we're not fucking around. This is like one of the biggest names in Hollywood that we're bringing in as our villain. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing him again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Maybe he's just doing the voice as well. We don't know, or he's going to be in a motion capture suit. I don't know, but when you add talent like Christian Bale, it can't be always that. It can't be that bad. And I think the cast is eyeing up to be pretty good. Like you got, what do you call her? Natalie Portman's coming back as Jane. So yeah, she's a great actress as well. And like I think people just kind of hate these movies and hate these Marvel movies just for the sake of hating them because they're not a certain way. But look, they're successful. They wouldn't be doing it if they wasn't. And yeah, I don't really think about it that much. Like with DC movies, with a Joker or a Zack Snyder Batman v Superman or something like that, you dig a little bit deeper. You think of it a little bit harder and stuff like that. Then you can have your light movies, your fun movies like the Marvel, and that's cool. It's okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if Marvel are gonna really kind of get weird with it, DC's kind of embracing the multiverse in and of itself. We already know that we're getting at least 2 Batman in the Flash film. Like, it's just when you think that the market was kind of getting oversaturated and maybe a little bit stale, it's kind of fighting back a little bit and saying, well, we're not quite done yet. Obviously, this is where the money is in Hollywood, essentially. So these studios aren't really going to let it go to waste. But hopefully that the all of this will be like a fresh new wave of attention that will hopefully invigorate what's going on. And I think, as you say, the diversity of everything on offer is really fucking good right now, like really good, so and with the convenience of streaming services, it just heightens that even more, because it's just a case of like, okay, what do I feel like watching today? It's not what should I look at film times for and drive down to the cinema and go get my food and go find my seat and all that. While that is an amazing experience, it is so much more convenient now to have everything at the tip of your fingers on a streaming service. So yeah, MCU, Disney, get weird with it. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, do something different. That's what I'm interested in. That's why WandaVision looks interesting, because it's different. Loki looks different, and I'm all for it. And hopefully we're in for a good ride. And like all this content is great. And hopefully DC can come and greenlit some other new stuff as well. And we can just live in a dream world where we're watching the best content and of all these characters. Maybe more Ben Affleck Batman, maybe Zack Snyder 2 or Justice League 2 and 3, maybe Cyborg, maybe all these stuff will happen. Hopefully.
We can dream. I mean, it's just one of those things. It kind of has. You kind of just think it has to. Like Disney is not fucking around. Warner Bros. You know what you need to do. We all know that you're watching, so give us Batfleck. Come on.
Yeah, and Jason Killar is pretty active on Twitter. He knows what the fans want, so hopefully he's eyeing up a few things for us. And maybe they're just waiting for Zack Snyder's Justice League to come out. It's already kind of a success because the subscription rate has already gone up because of the new movies added to it and Wonder Woman and stuff like that. So it already is probably exceeding their expectations, with the help of Matrix and Kong versus Godzilla and all those other properties. But still, that's the goal they had there for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's met it. So you
have no reason not to carry on now. We're all looking at you to keep on putting it out, but it's got to be good, quality over quantity. Don't forget.
Exactly, and like all these MCU shows could be terrible. We don't know yet,
They could be. But either way, it's looking pretty exciting, and I think now is definitely a good time to maybe look at your monthly expenditures and see if you've got room for a streaming service or two. But who knows? I'm definitely excited. We've got a lot of interesting things coming up, obviously. Not just in terms of the industry as a whole, but in terms of what we're doing. Obviously, if in case any of you guys don't know, on the 20th of December, we have a huge charity live stream. There's a load of American stream or North American streams, they're doing their whole thing all day where it's like 10 different streams that you watch for a couple hours and then you move to the next one, move to the next one. There's also an international equivalent where I think there's about 5 or 6 streams. So your UK representation is coming from us lovely chaps. So the time is yet to be confirmed, but yeah, on the 20th of December, 2 big charity streams going on. So make sure you're following us on these handles, and we'll send all the details out in due course.
Yeah, I think that the time we're going for is probably around 7 p.m. UK time. So an hour earlier than we started this stream. That's probably when it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's going to be good fun. There's the international stream going on. You got the Americans doing their thing, but we'll do it better over here.
Yeah,
And
we'll set the bar very high, so it cannot be met.
Yeah, so we might do we're still getting planned out the kinks and stuff. We might have a guest. We might have a few games and stuff like that, or we'll see how it goes. But it's interesting. It's all for a good cause anyway. That's the most important thing for Adam Snyder, that fund on the 20th. So happy to help. So hopefully you guys can come by and be in the comments and engage and talk about whatever you want to talk about. Might be some news. We don't know what the topic will be or anything like that, but we'll just have a good fun with each other.
And hopefully before then, we should hopefully be having our Wonder Woman 84 stream. Hopefully we'll have been able to see it by then, if as long as COVID is permitting, and we can get out and see it. So that's probably the plan for the next couple of streams: a Wonder Woman stream and then an awesome charity stream on the 20th. So it'd be great to see you guys all there for that. But thank you all for stopping by. I realized this episode was nearly 2 hours long, but we had a lot of shit to talk about.
Yeah, we did, and let it continue.
Let it continue indeed. And hopefully we get some awesome stuff to talk about in the future. But yeah, thank you all for coming. And thank you all for sticking around. Apologies if there were any technical difficulties earlier. I think it kind of evened out after a little while. So yeah, any technical hiccup should have been picked up along the way. But apologies anyway. We're getting better. We are getting better. But yeah, that's awesome. We are out, everybody. We will see you in the future. Farewell.
See you guys.